traveling here tonight. I will not keep you long, but I have some business with you.
Business of the court?
No. No, I come of my own, without the court's authority. Hear me. I know not if you are aware, but your wife's name is mentioned in the court.
We know it, sir. Our Mary Warden told us. We are entirely amazed.
This is a strange time, mister. No man may longer doubt the powers of the dark are gathered in monstrous attack upon this village. There is too much evidence now to deny it. You will agree, sir?
I have no knowledge in that line.
Page 1170.
I thought, sir, to put some questions as to the Christian character of this house, if you will permit me.
Why, we have no fear of questions.
Good, then. In the book of record that Mr. Paris keeps, I note that you were rarely in the church on Sabbath day.
My wife was sick this winter. I surely did come when I could, and when I could not, I prayed in this house.
Mr. Proctor, your house is not a church. Your theology must tell you that.
It does, sir, it does. And it tells me that a minister may pray to God without he have golden candlesticks upon the altar. I think sometimes that man dreams cathedrals, not clapboard meeting houses.
And yet, mister, a Christian on Sabbath day must be in church. Tell me, you have 3 children.
Aye, boys.
How comes it that only 2 are baptized?
I like it not that Mr. Paris should lay his hand upon my baby. I see no light of God in that man. I'll not concede.
I must say it, Mr. Proctor, that is not for you to decide. The man's ordained, therefore the light of God is in him.
What's your suspicion, Mr.
No, I have no...
I nailed the roof upon the church. I hung the door.
Did you? That's a good sign.
It may be I have been too quick to bring the man to book, but you cannot think we ever desire the destruction of religion.
There is a softness in your record, sir, a softness.
I think maybe we have been too hard with Mr. Paris. I think so.
1172, top of it.
Do you know your commandments, Elizabeth?
Uh-oh.
I'm sure we do. There be no mark of blame upon my life. I am a covenanted Christian woman, Mr. Hale.
And you, mister?
I'm sure I do, sir.
Let you repeat them, if you will.
The commandments.
Aye.
Thou shalt not kill.
Aye.
Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods, nor make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. Thou shalt not have any gods before me. Thou shalt remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Thou shalt honor thy father and mother. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
You have said that twice, sir.
Aye.
Adultery, John.
Aye. You see, sir, between the 2 of us, we know them all. I think it be a small fault.
Theology, sir, is a fortress. No crack in a fortress may be accounted small.
There be no love for Satan in this house, mister.
I pray it dearly. Well, then I'll bid you good night.
Mr. Hale, I do think you are suspecting me somewhat.
Goody Proctor, I do not judge you. My duty is to add what I may to the godly wisdom of the court. I pray you both good health and good fortune. Good night, sir.
I think you must tell him, John.
What's that?
Will you tell him?
I have not witnessed and cannot prove it, except my word be taken. But I know the children's sickness had naught to do with witchcraft.
Not to do...
Mr. Paris discovered them sporting in the woods. They were startled and took sick.
Who told you this?
Abigail Williams.
Abigail.
Abigail
Williams told you it had naught to do with witchcraft.
She told me the day you came, sir.
Why did you keep
I never
this?
knew until tonight that the world has gone daft with this nonsense.
Nonsense! Mister, I have myself examined Tituba, Sarah Good, and numerous others that have confessed to dealing with the devil. They have confessed it.
Why not? They must hang for denying it.
Right.
Rather than they will swear to anything before they'll hang. Have you never thought of that?
I have. Indeed. And you? Would you testify to this in court?
I had not reckoned with going into court. But if I must, I will.
Do you falter here?
I falter nothing, but I wondered if my story would be credited in such a court. I am no fool, mister.
Proctor, let you be open with me now. I have heard one that troubles me. It's said...
Here it comes.
No belief that there may even be witches in the world. Is that true, sir?
I know not what I have said. I may have said it. I have wondered if there be witches in the world, although
Top
I
of
cannot believe they
1174.
come among us now.
Then you do not.
I have no knowledge of it. The Bible speaks of witches, and I will not deny them.
And you, woman?
I cannot believe it.
You cannot, Elizabeth. You bewilder him.
I cannot believe the devil may own a woman's soul, Mr. Hale, when she keeps an upright way as I have. I am a good woman, I know it. And if you believe I may do only good work in the world and yet be secretly bound to Satan, then I must tell you, sir, I do not believe it.
But woman, you do believe that there are witches?
If you think that I am one, then I say that I am not.
You surely do not fly against the gospel. The
She
gospel?
believe in the gospel, every word.
Question Abigail Williams about the gospel,
She
not
do
myself.
not mean to doubt the gospel, sir. You cannot think it. This is a Christian house, sir. A Christian house.
God keep you both. Let the third child be quickly baptized. And go you without fail each Sunday into Sabbath prayer. And keep a solemn, quiet way among you.
This scene, of course, is a fascinating one because when Hale enters, he's there of his own accord, but he says it, I'm here to try to figure out whether you people are legitimate or not, true Christians, right? And of course that, at the bottom of 1169, that right away is going to be concerning, right? Notice, no, I come of my own, but he does say it. You were mentioned in the court, speaking about, obviously, Elizabeth, right? Mentioned in the court. All it takes, again, back to our blacklist observation, all it takes is just, you got to be mentioned, your name has to be mentioned. Notice, he will say it on 1170. Hale will say it. This is a strange time, mister. No man may longer doubt the powers of the dark are gathered in monstrous attack upon this village. There is too much evidence now to deny it. Will you agree, sir? In other words, it's right there. I mean, he says it. He just says it right out loud. This town is in Satan's control. Now, of course, the irony is that on one count, you can absolutely believe this type of thing because of the dynamics as we've already seen it, of the negative energy. That's a huge part of this, right? But notice Proctor, he will say it. I have no knowledge in that line. But it's hard to think so pious a woman be secretly a devil, right? Notice the question then is about the Christian character of this house. And then again, you got some tension going on here. Why, he asks, are you never at church? Proctor doesn't want to have to say out loud that the reason he's not at church is because Abigail Williams is at church, and he's trying not to be anywhere where she is because he's trying to get past this whole thing. But where he does go is he says, I'm not into this Paris guy at all. He's got serious problems with the golden candlesticks on 1170. In other words, this is his way to say Paris is more interested in money than he is in saving people's souls. Right? Hale will ask, what golden candlestick? So in other words, he's not fully informed that there are people in the community of Salem that do not really like Reverend Paris for this very reason, that Paris has not been completely above board with them. Notice, Hale will say it when Proctor calls into question the very idea that Paris is legit. He says, he's ordained, therefore the light of God is in him. Note the irony of this. The suggestion is, if some higher order has ordained this man, then he's clearly a good person, regardless of what you think. Now, of course, this has always raised questions, and lines like this have always raised questions, because we have lots of examples of religious men and women who are highly ordained, who do really terrible things. And oftentimes people will say, well, he can't be accused of that. He is a priest, for example. And the irony here is that Hale is buying into this argument as well, right? Notice, Proctor will defend himself by saying, I nailed the roof upon the church. I hung the door. In other words, I've done good deeds. And Hale will say, that's a good sign. Proctor will say, it may be I've been too quick to bring the man to book, but you cannot think we ever desired the destruction of religion. I think that's in your mind, is it not? This is a fascinating line. Let's put it in our notes. Proctor comes right out and he says it. It's not that I don't believe in religion. It's that I don't believe in the hypocrisy of certain people. Now let's jot it down at 3A. Next year as seniors, you're going to study Chaucer's Canterbury Tales with me. And this is one of those accusations that Chaucer is going to be attacked with. And that is, he is attacking the church by pointing out the hypocrisy of the church. we'll ask this question, can you separate message from messenger? That is to say, can you believe in religion and at the same time still accept that oftentimes there's lots of hypocrisy in religion? Proctor seems to think it's possible. By the way, let's just pause for a moment on 1171 since we're there. And the world literature and context box with political drama. The Bertolt Brecht information. Notice your dates of 1898 to 1956. German playwright and poet Bertolt Brecht began writing in the chaotic years after World War I. Hyperinflation in Germany had severely reduced the value of German money and unemployment had climbed to 30%. Brecht pondered how to address the reality of the times. Can we, quote, can we speak of money in the poetry of iambs, end quote, he asked. Brecht came to believe an artist's job is to wake people up. He rejected traditional theater where the audience loses itself in the drama. Brecht organized a group of artists to develop a new style of theater. Actors sometimes broke out of character to speak to the audience. During the early 1930s, Brecht watched with dismay as the Nazis rose to power. In 1933, he and his family fled Germany. While in exile, Brecht completed some of his most important works, including Mother Courage, a play about the horrors of war. And then to connect to literature, in what ways can art challenge people to think differently? Please explain. On page 1172, we come back then with this notion of, to prove you are a good Christian, recite your commandments. Hale asks, let's go ahead and point out, this is what got earlier, right, as we were saying, poor Goody got jacked for this very thing, right? She didn't know her commandments. Notice the repeating of the commandments here. John Proctor can get all of them except one, which of course his wife identifies right away as the one he can't get, and that of course is adultery. Now I told you as we began this play that there's multiple ways to study this play. We named three. One was a psychological rendering, then we said sociological, and then of course historical. From the psychological perspective, it's kind of fascinating because of course it's going to beg the question, do you think John Proctor intentionally forgets about adultery, or is that unintentional? That's the one, though, that he has broken, and clearly he knows that he has broken it. Notice, it will be his wife who reminds him, adultery, John. And then the response, of course, is that, well, because he kind of laughs it off, well, at least between the two of us, we got it together. He says, I think that it's not that big of a deal. It's a small fault. Hale's next line is one of the central lines of the play, so let's make sure we have it in our notes. I'm with you on 1172. Hale says it. Theology, sir, is a fortress. In other words, this is no laughing matter. No crack in a fortress may be accounted small. This is huge. Let's write this line down, because this will be foundational to understanding how all the crazy is going to take place. In other words, we cannot admit, he says, theology, the study of God and therefore religion, cannot admit a mistake, because if there's a mistake, then it's like a fortress. The whole project comes tumbling down. Of course, the same argument was made by McCarthy about the nation. We cannot have communists in a nation. Of course, the fair question was, I thought this was a nation that allows for freedom of speech. So if I want to be a communist in this nation, don't I have that freedom? Isn't that part of the fundamental understanding of what makes America America? The argument here is theology is a fortress. No crack in a fortress may be accounted small. Obviously, the dark irony is this play is going to prove what happens when there is a crack. And of course, that crack is going to lead to the death of a whole lot of people. Notice the continuation of that conversation. Hale will in fact say, I do not judge you to Elizabeth. My duty is to add what I may to the godly wisdom of the court, the top of 1173. These are clearly darkly ironic lines, right? And then he's ready to go. And it's Elizabeth that says it. Now, it begs the question, why isn't John Proctor quick to step up to Hale and say, I know what's going on here? It's Elizabeth that says, are you going to tell him? Leading Hale to go, tell me what are you talking about? Then it's John who gets to say, it's all a scam. I know it's a scam because Abigail Williams told me it was a scam. Now in 1173, Hale cannot believe it. Why did you keep this? Proctor's first response, I never knew until tonight that the world has gone daft with this nonsense. Nonsense? Hale says, I have myself examined Tituba, Sarah Good, numerous others that have confessed to dealing with the devil. They have confessed it. Proctor's answer, and why not? If they must hang for denying it, there are them that will swear to anything before they'll hang. Have you never thought of that? To which Hale's response is, yeah, actually I have. I kind of have indeed. In other words, I kind of see what you're saying. The next question, are you ready to tell this information in court? The answer, I'm not sure I want to go there. Hale's response is, I got a question for you. Do you actually believe in all of this thing about witchcraft and everything? This, of course, is provoked because he will say, I'm no fool. In other words, I understand the dynamics in play on the ground. Proctor will respond by saying, well, the Bible says that there are witches, 1174. And Hale will then ask, well, then do you not believe? Proctor, I have no knowledge of it. The Bible speaks of witches and I will not deny them. Hale turns to Elizabeth. How about you? She says, I cannot believe it. Now this is significant because you get this sense of a tension where Elizabeth doesn't want to put herself and her family in peril. But she cannot admit that she doesn't actually believe in this notion. She says it this way, I cannot think the devil may own a woman's soul, Mr. Hale, when she keeps an upright way, as I have. I'm a good woman, I know it. And if you believe I may do only good work in the world and yet be secretly bound to Satan, then I must tell you, sir, I do not believe it. But woman, Hale says, you do believe there are witches in, and then Elizabeth interrupts him. If you think that I am one, then I say there are none. Hale's response is interesting. You surely do not fly, notice again the use of the flight theme, against the gospel. The gospel. Proctor immediately realizes we're headed for serious trouble and he tries to protect his wife. The irony, of course, will be here in a second that they're going to show up and they're going to take his wife off in chains. A compelling scene. We'll come back in a moment to continue our study of Act 2. Thank you.